So, Oscarville, Georgia, got more rhetoric coming right up. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Common Sense, Logic, and Reason. And as always, I want to say thank y'all for joining me today. I have more rhetoric for y'all. Oscarville, Georgia is an example of historical crime. Again, black people crying about an irrelevant past that they love to try to live through. But as we know, America is considered a land of opportunity, and it is. People come here from all over the world to partake in the opportunity that exists in America. There are people who come to this country with the clothes on their back and make something of themselves. There's no law stopping anyone. Anyone can do it, achieve whatever it is they wish in the United States of America. And we have mountains of evidence of people doing that very thing. So when black people are constantly being perpetual victims, blacks will ask, well, why don't you just take advantage of everything that America is, everything that America has to offer? And the response that you'll typically get from black people is, well, every time black folks try to build something, white folks come take it away. Now, they all will give you the same recycled examples. They give you these examples of from decades ago, when the overwhelming majority of black people alive today weren't even alive, weren't even thought of. But yet they'll give you these examples as if they're stopping them today. The number one example of that you typically get is of Black Wall Street. That happened in June of 1921. That was 104 years ago. That's not absolutely irrelevant to today. But they still cry about it. And what they don't tell you about it is that the Greenwood District was actually rebuilt in Tulsa. So we shouldn't be focused on the riot of 1921. The question should be, what happened to Black Wall Street after it was rebuilt? Of course, they completely avoid that one. Well, Oscarville, Georgia is another common example that you will get from blacks. It basically is in North Georgia, and it was founded in the late 1800s after the Civil War. I believe that slaves, newly freed slaves congregated here, and they built the city, and it was a flourishing city. Now, this city has had its troubles. In 1912, there was a riot that took place, and this riot caused the displacement of a lot of black people from their property. And they oftentimes, when these incidents happen, they'll tell you that white folks were jealous of what black people have, so white people came and they took it. But usually, if you do your research, more often than not, it will be some incident that set off a riot. In this case, I think a group of black men were accused of sexually assaulting a white woman, which is common back in that era. And this set off an incident that caused a riot that caused these black people to be displaced. However, the thing that Oscarville, Georgia is known for now is being at the bottom of a lake. Lake Lanier. Now, the Army Corps of Engineers basically took the remnant of what happened, of the remnant of the city, and they turned it into a lake. And it basically was supposed to be a reservoir, was supposed to be a runoff to protect the city of Atlanta. And that was the purpose of them creating a lake there on top of the remnants of what basically was Oscarville. Now, they flooded it in 1950, and black folks, like I said, they're losing their mind over this. They cry, they recycle this, and they recycle the same example. But I asked the question, like any other example of historical crime, we all agree it's wrong. Nobody's saying that it didn't happen. We all agree that it was wrong. And it was one of numerous examples from back in the day, long ago. These conflicts between blacks and whites that went awry and that caused the loss of property for blacks. We all agree that it's wrong. Nobody's saying that it was right. Nobody's disagreeing that it happened. saying that it didn't happen. It happened, and we all agree that it's wrong. And if there's any black person who was alive back then, and who can say, hey, this is I lost out, then come forward, and that person should be restored. But you can't be restored based off of something that happened to your grandparents, great-great-grandparents, and so on and so forth. But another thing that these like I say, these incidents having, as I say, have in common, is they happened long ago. Right? The displacement of black people, which happened in 1912, that was what, 113 years ago? There's no black person alive today who were alive when that happened. That's not impacting anyone today. And then it was flooded in 1950. That was 75 years ago. Again, the overwhelming majority of black people alive today weren't alive when it happened. Hell, I mean, my parents weren't alive then. They were born in the 50s. I'll be 52 in November. They weren't alive then. So why do we keep crying about these incidents? That's no longer relevant. And stuff that happened decades ago, none of that is happening now. And the thing is that they always love to live through these incidents to try to act as if this is the same thing is happening today, that black folks are being oppressed today, and it's not. Like I always ask the question, the black folks want to cry about the white folks took something. Well, what have black people built in the last 5 years that white folks took away? Nothing. What about the last 10 years? What have black people built in the last 10 years were building and white folks came took it away? Nothing. What about the last 20 years? What have black people built in the last 20 years that white folks just came and they took it? Nothing. What about the last 30 years? Hell, since I've been alive, and in your time frame, what have the white folks came in and took from you that you were building and you were in the process of building it and white folks came and took it from you? The answer to that question is going to be absolutely nothing. This is another reason why I don't allow group collective oppression. Don't tell me about somebody else's oppression. I want you to tell me about your oppression. And if you can't tell me about your oppression, you need to have a seat and let the people who can tell us about the oppression come forward. Anyway, if you ever hear black people crying about Oscarville, Georgia, well, now you know, and knowing it's half the battle. And it's always, until next time.